You ever have one of those moments where someone subtly disrespects you and you're left wondering if you're just imagining it? Maybe you're mid-sentence and someone cuts you off and the whole conversation has moved on without you, like you were never speaking at all. Or they throw out one of those jokes that sound harmless, but something about the tone stings. And then there are the moments that are even quieter than that, when you can just feel that people aren't really taking you seriously, no matter what you say or how you say it. And here's the tricky part. Most of us don't know how to respond in those moments in a way that actually shifts the dynamic. Sometimes we get defensive, trying to over-explain ourselves, which ends up making us look like we're desperate for validation. Other times we freeze, not because we've consciously decided to stay calm, but because we don't know what else to do. And when we don't respond with clarity or presence, the message that gets sent is, "This is okay," which means more often than not, it happens again and again. And next time it hits even harder because a pattern has already started to form. We like to believe that respect is automatic, that if we're kind, smart, and thoughtful, people will naturally treat us well. But the reality, people respond to the cues we give them. They learn how to treat us based on how we carry ourselves, how we speak, and what we tolerate. And if we're not consciously setting that standard, someone else will set it for us, and not always in our favor. Think about the people you've watched navigate a group. There's always that one person who barely opens their mouth but instantly has everyone's attention. And then there's someone else who might be just as brilliant but keeps getting interrupted or talked over. It's not always about what they're saying, it's about how they're saying it. It's about presence. People are reading us all the time, whether we notice it or not. The way we stand, the way we move, the way we react, it all sends a message. And what we're really doing is teaching people moment by moment how we expect to be treated. So if you've ever found yourself walking away from a conversation feeling invisible, frustrated, or like you somehow lost your power in the room, this video is for you. Because the truth is, you're not stuck in that pattern. You can shift the dynamic, not by being louder or more aggressive, but by changing the tone you set. When you start sending the right signals, when your energy, voice, and presence align, you stop needing to demand respect. People just start giving it to you because they feel it. Before we get into how to handle it, let's ask ourselves one thing first. Why do people even do this? Because honestly, that's where it starts. Understanding where their behavior comes from is the first step, not just to protecting yourself, but to responding in a way that's calm, grounded, and way more powerful than you think. So why do people act like this? Why do they make those little comments or make you feel smaller in front of others? Most of the time, it's not even about you. It's about them. Some people do it to gain control. They want to feel bigger, smarter, more confident, so they try to shrink you a little. If they can make you look unsure or uncomfortable, then suddenly they seem stronger in comparison. And here's the wild part. The people who do this the most are usually the ones who are actually the most insecure. You've probably seen it happen, right? You casually share an idea or a thought, and someone gives you that smirk, or they say something like, "Oh, that's interesting, I guess," with a tone that's dripping in sarcasm. They're not openly attacking you, but they're definitely trying to undercut you in front of others. And if you hesitate or shrink yourself in that moment, they've won, because now they look confident and you look like you don't believe in your own words. But here's the thing. That wasn't about your idea. It was about their ego. They needed to feel like the dominant one, and they used you to get there. Once you start seeing that clearly, it becomes so much easier not to take it personally. Other times, people do it to control the dynamic in the moment, especially in group settings. Think about a group dinner or a classroom or even a party. Someone wants attention. They want to seem funny or sharp or confident, so they make a little jab at you. Something like, "Oh my God, love that early 2000s outfit. So brave of you to bring it back." And everyone laughs. Not because they don't like you, but because the dynamic shifted and suddenly you became the target. It's like a social shortcut. Instead of standing out for being interesting or kind, they stand out by putting someone else in a weaker position. It gives them the spotlight at your expense. And let's be honest, some people are just mean. There's no deep psychology, no hidden trauma, no grand reason. Some people are just rude, negative, and enjoy making others uncomfortable. You've seen them, the ones who always have something sarcastic to say, who act like pointing out your flaws makes them more intelligent, people who treat being critical like it's a personality trait. But even then, it's usually still about their own unhappiness. Happy people don't walk around trying to humiliate others. Secure people don't need to prove anything. Sometimes we let them. And I say this with all the love in the world because I've been there too. There was a time where it felt like I was always getting talked over. People would interrupt me, ignore what I said, or say little things that made me feel small. And I thought I was just unlucky. I kept thinking, why is this happening to me? Until it finally clicked. Part of it was about how I was showing up. Not because I deserved it, but because without realizing it, I was making it easier for people to treat me that way. And listen, I'm not saying that makes it okay, but once you see it, once you realize the part you're playing in the dynamic, that's when everything changes. Because now you can shift it. You don't need to become aggressive or fake or loud. You just need to stop making it easy for people to put you down. So now, let's get into the real game changer. What are the subtle things you might be doing that lower your value in people's eyes? And how can you shift them to command more respect? So let's say you walk into a room. Maybe it's a classroom, a new job, a social event, even just a casual coffee meet up with new people. You walk in and before you've said anything, people are already creating a whole mental file on you. They're making quick decisions. Is she confident? Is she shy? Is she someone I need to pay attention to? Is she a leader or a follower? Can I interrupt her and get away with it? And you know what's wild? You're doing the exact same thing to them. We don't do this because we're judgmental. We do it because our brains are wired for it. Literally. It goes back to how our brains evolved for survival. Back in the day, like way back in human evolution, our ancestors didn't have time for long introductions. They had to assess very quickly, is this person a threat, a friend, a potential ally, someone I can trust? Our nervous systems are still doing that today. The part of the brain responsible for this, our little emotional alarm system, it kicks in immediately when we see someone new. It doesn't wait for a speech. It's scanning posture, facial expression, tone, even the pace of your walk. It's incredibly fast. And once it forms an impression, it tends to stick. That's why first impressions matter so much more than we'd like to admit. Now, I know we want to believe that people will get to know us, that they'll see our heart, our talent, our good intentions, and sometimes they will. But the truth is, the first few seconds do a lot of heavy lifting, and often they set the tone for how someone treats you. Have you ever walked into a room and just felt like you were invisible? Like no one really noticed you? Or if they did, they didn't take you seriously? That's not just in your head. It's usually because of the subtle cues your body, your tone, your presence are giving off. And again, it's not your fault. It's just that most of us aren't taught to be intentional about how we show up. We're told, just be yourself, or don't worry about what other people think. But honestly, that advice only works when you already feel secure and respected. What if you don't feel that yet? What if you want to be seen, but something about how you present yourself is making people overlook you? I remember when I was in high school, like back in those first days of the year, it was so obvious which teachers were going to be walked all over and which ones we were all going to respect without question. And honestly, thinking about that now, it kind of blows my mind. Because we weren't judging them based on how good they were at teaching. We didn't even know that yet. It was all about how they walked into the room, how they carried themselves, and how they spoke in those first few seconds. Some would come in all nervous, avoiding eye contact, rushing through their words, maybe even trying too hard to be nice so we'd like them. And we could feel it right away, like, okay, this one's not gonna be a problem. And then there were others who'd walk in with this calm, grounded energy. They weren't loud, they didn't have to prove anything, but they'd stand tall, look around the room, speak slowly, and suddenly we all sat up a little straighter. Not out of fear, but out of respect, out of instinct. It's crazy how fast we made those judgments, literally within seconds. And what's even crazier is that now at university, I see the same thing playing out all the time. Whether it's a professor, a classmate presenting, or even just someone entering a room full of strangers. The energy you bring in sets the tone for how people treat you. And it really makes you think, if people are forming those impressions that quickly, how often are we unconsciously teaching them to underestimate us? Because again, our brains are wired to respond to cues, and confidence, presence, steadiness, these are cues of leadership, cues of competence, cues that says you might want to pay attention to me. And here's the kicker. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to be the most talkative person in the room. You don't need to command attention through dominance. You can be soft-spoken and still magnetic. You can be gentle and still unshakable. What matters is that you show up with intention, that you own the space you take up, that when you walk into a room, you walk in like your presence matters, because it does. The way you carry yourself is not about ego. It's about giving others a reason to respect what you're about to say. And it's also about training your own brain to remember that you belong there. And look, we all have those days. Days where we feel small, unsure, messy, human. But if you can practice entering spaces like you deserve to be there, posture strong, eye contact, steady, you're doing something powerful. You're reprogramming not just how the world sees you, but how you see you. Because that's the secret nobody really tells you. Confidence isn't about being fearless. It's about deciding to hold your space anyway. You know what's often behind being seen as someone people can walk all over? It's not always softness or shyness. Sometimes it's over-accommodating. It's the constant smiling even when something feels off. It's nodding along even when you disagree. It's saying, oh, it's fine, when it's really not fine. It's laughing at jokes that actually stung a little just to avoid looking too sensitive. And here's the thing. We do this because we're trying to be chill or nice or just avoid awkwardness. But what people receive is this message. She's not gonna push back. She will tolerate it. She won't make it a big deal. And once someone believes that, it shapes every interaction that follows. Because respect isn't just about how impressive or smart you are, it's about what you allow. I've seen people with strong personalities get disrespected simply because they were always available, always saying yes, never challenging anything. And I've seen people who barely spoke a word be treated with so much care and consideration because they had boundaries. And those boundaries said, hey, I'm kind, but I'm not here for disrespect. So if you're wondering why people sometimes don't take you seriously, ask yourself, where am I making myself too available? Where am I downplaying how I really feel just to keep the peace? Where am I afraid to be inconvenient? And then there's how you speak. Not just what you say, but how you say it. You could have the smartest idea in the room, but if you present it like a question, if your voice trails off, if you throw in a dozen, I don't know, maybe, and just my opinion though, people will treat it like it's optional, like it's not fully important. We do this all the time without even realizing it. We make our voices smaller, we add disclaimers to everything, we end our sentences with nervous little laughs like we're already apologizing for existing. And the thing is, it's not always because we're unsure of what we're saying. It's because we've been conditioned to not sound too confident, to not be too much. But here's the truth. When you constantly present your thoughts like suggestions, people treat them like suggestions. When you say something like, sorry, this might be dumb, but I don't know, maybe it will work. I don't know if this makes sense. You're basically giving people permission to not take you seriously before you've even said the actual point. Now imagine saying the exact same thing, but with a calm tone and a steady pace. Here's how I think we could do this. That's it. No apology, no softness, just clarity. And you don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to take some hyper dominant tone. You just have to stop shrinking your voice. Stop treating your thoughts like they need to be sugar coated just to be heard. Because the more you speak with trust in yourself, the more people start to mirror that. They lean in, they listen, they feel like what you say matters because you treat it like it does. So when you walk into that room, take a second, ground yourself, lift your chin, take up your space, let your energy speak before your words even arrive. And when you do speak, do it like someone who knows her words have weight. You don't owe people a performance, you owe yourself a presence. And once you start moving through the world that way, people won't just listen more. They'll feel the difference, they'll sense it, and they'll start treating you like someone who matters, because you always have. You just need to let them know. Okay, but let's say it's already happened. You've been disrespected, maybe in a subtle way, like a sarcastic joke at your expense, or someone talked over you, mocked something you said, or made you feel small in front of others. You're sitting there with that tight feeling in your chest, that second of confusion where your brain is catching up to what just happened. You know it wasn't right, but now you're stuck in that awkward space of, do I say something? Do I let it go? Am I overreacting? That's the space where most people lose their power. No one teaches us how to hold it in moments like this. So let's talk about how to actually respond when the damage is already done, when the disrespect has already landed. First, here's what you don't do. Don't immediately justify yourself. Don't get frustrated. Don't nervously laugh like it didn't bother you, because if it did, that's valid. What you want to do is pause. Just breathe. Seriously, even just 1 or 2 seconds of silence before you respond shifts everything. It signals presence, it signals control, and more importantly, it gives you space to respond intentionally instead of reacting emotionally. Because the goal here isn't to win the moment, it's to reset the dynamic. So how do you do that? Let's say someone makes a passive-aggressive comment about you in front of others. Something like, wow, didn't see you as the type to say something like that. All eyes are on you. Here's what you do. You meet their energy with calm. Not fake calm, real calm. You stay steady, you keep your tone grounded, and you say something like, interesting comment. I'm not sure what you meant by that. Could you explain? Or simply, did you mean that to be disrespectful? Just checking. You're not raising your voice. You're not attacking back, but you're making it very clear that you saw that you heard it, and you're not the kind of person who lets this slide. The awkward silence that follows, let it sit. Don't rush to fill it. Let them feel the discomfort they created. Because here's the thing, people who get used to putting others down rarely expect pushback, especially if you're the kind of person they've always seen as too nice or too soft. That's exactly why these moments are so powerful, because you're breaking the pattern. You're teaching them and everyone else in the room that you're not an easy target anymore. Another option that works really well is to redirect the conversation without reacting. Let's say someone says something condescending and expects you to laugh it off. Instead, you just go, anyway, back to what I was saying, and you keep talking. You don't acknowledge their attempt to pull focus. You don't reward it with attention. You just move on with your intention. That silence, that shift, it's powerful. It says you're irrelevant to what I'm doing right now. Now, here's the hard part, doing this with consistency, because when you start holding your ground in subtle, respectful ways, people take notice. They may push back at first, they may try to test you, but over time, they learn. They learn not to cross your boundaries because you showed them calmly, repeatedly, and clearly that you take yourself seriously. And eventually they will too. Let's talk about the one thing that makes all the difference, but no one really teaches you. Emotional control. This is what makes the biggest difference between reacting and responding. When someone disrespects you, your nervous system lights up, your heart races, your face gets hot, and your brain wants to do one of two things: fight or freeze. And that's totally normal. But you can't change the dynamic if you let your emotions run the show. Control doesn't mean pretending you're not upset. It means slowing down the reaction just enough so you can choose how to respond instead of letting the moment choose for you. That's power. Being able to take a breath, to hold eye contact and speak calmly while every part of you wants to lash out or disappear. That's next level strength. Because when you stay emotionally steady, it disarms the other person. They don't get the satisfaction of seeing you flustered. You don't give them power. Instead, you show that you're not here to play their game. And that shift alone changes everything. And trust me, people remember how you respond under pressure. That's what builds your reputation. Now, a little reminder for the people pleasers and peacekeepers out there. This doesn't mean you need to walk around correcting everyone or looking for fights. You don't have to turn into someone cold or distant to protect your peace. What you do need is clarity. Clarity about what is and isn't okay with you. Clarity about your self-worth. Clarity about what kind of treatment you will no longer tolerate. And when you carry that clarity into every conversation, every interaction, every room, you don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone. You become someone people naturally respect because you respect yourself first. So the next time someone tries to test you, tries to undermine you, or tries to make you feel small, pause, breathe, and remind yourself you are not here to make other people feel comfortable. You are not here to laugh along when something hurts just to keep the peace. And you are definitely not here to hand over your power because someone else feels insecure. Hold your energy. Let your voice land. And if they don't like it, that's not your problem. Because once you learn how to protect your dignity without ever raising your voice, that's when your presence becomes unshakable. So the next time someone tries to put you down, whether it's subtle or obvious, remember this: you don't have to fight, prove, or over-explain. You just have to decide how you want to be treated and then embody that. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes, until eventually you stop having to demand respect because it's already there. So this is all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next one. Bye!